Okay, here we go.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our spiritual weather report call for December of 2020. Corlight's spiritual weather report call. We're always so excited about these monthly calls, and it's a lot of fun for us. And again, if you're new, this is Brad, and I'm here with my life partner, Leslie Temple-Thurston, who is choosing to remain in silence these days, and I'm the one doing the talking, and Leslie transmits a beautiful healing energy throughout the call. So we're here in South Africa, and I know it sounds very remote. Most people are from the United States, but we do have people on these calls from all over the world, and I know for many people it sounds like South Africa is just so remote, but we're, this world these days, we're all so connected. I really feel so attuned to you all, as does Leslie, and we're keeping close track of what's going on in the world, and my, oh my, what an incredible time we're in. The intensity has just continued to build and build and build, and there's this surreal quality to the energy that is very hard to describe. I'm sure you're all feeling it, and we're going to talk about it today. I would say highs and lows, remarkable highs and lows. So anyway, I don't want to get into the discussion right now. We're going to start with our guided meditation, but before we do, I would like to say I'm very excited about today. There's a lot of energy behind this session. We're going to be talking about some things we've never discussed before on these calls, and I also have a new exercise to share with you. And also, I was very, very guided to invite a dear friend to be a special guest speaker today. Many of you know her. It's Stephanie Austin. And in case you don't know Stephanie, she's a very renowned professional astrologer and a longtime Corelighter. And I invited her to be with us today because the astrology is fascinating and very powerful this month. In fact, not just this month, but in general right now. So she's going to be talking with us about what she sees. And Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us. We're really delighted to have you. And I'll be introducing Stephanie very soon after the guided meditation. And I think also just briefly, I wanted to say a quick thank you to everybody for your donations. It's that time of year. I know a lot of people do year-end donations, and we're very grateful to your donations to Corelight and our humanitarian arm, Seeds of Light, supporting the AIDS orphans and marginalized communities here in South Africa. So we really appreciate your remembering us in your end-of-year giving and helping us continue our work of spreading light in the world. So a deep bow of gratitude to all of you. Thank you so much. And also, lastly, I want to apologize to anybody who has emailed me in the past month or so and has not heard back from me. I just, so much is slipping through the cracks because it's just very full times. So my apologies, and I do hope to get to everybody in time. And if it's something pressing, please email me back. I'm sure you understand. I think most of us are in that situation right now where it's just hard to keep up. So much is moving fast now. So, okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and begin with a guided meditation. And I invite you now to close your eyes and get comfortable and take a few long, slow, deep breaths. And just relax very deeply, letting go with each exhale. As you relax and unwind, I invite you to just go yin, that receptive quality where you allow the energy to permeate your body. And as you know, Leslie, if you've been on these calls at all, Leslie gives a Shakti transmission during the call, which is a beautiful, uplifting transmission of healing energy. In the East, it's known as Shakti. And even though she's in silence, it's a gift that you can receive just by relaxing and remaining meditative. And it happens throughout the call, but especially in the meditation. And it doesn't matter whether you're with us live today or listening to the recording. Just breathe deeply and relax and realize that we're all part of a field. We're all connected. And as we let go, and as we deeply relax, we slip into that beautiful space where time and space don't really exist. Those are just third-dimensional concepts. And so we invite you to tune into those other levels of reality beyond time and space. With each breath, let go and feel the connection to the unity. Feel the connection to your own heart, to our hearts, to the hearts of everyone in this circle, even though you may not know who they are. We all receive this transmission of light that comes through during the call, whether you're with us live or listening later. And as you continue to breathe and let go, I invite you to scan your body from head to toes and feel any place in your body that might be holding on to tension in the muscles. And just breathe light into those areas and breathe out the tension. Breathe in the present moment and breathe out any worries about the past or the future. We hold worry in the muscles as tension, and we hold fear in the body as well. And this is a time where many people are worried and in fear, so it's a good opportunity to just give yourself over to this moment of letting go of all that. Let go of any fear, any tension in the muscles. So normally we take quite a bit of time with this, but I'm going to move forward a little more quickly today because we have a lot to share. So I'll be quiet for a moment while you just feel all the muscles relaxing. Feel and visualize a wave of energy, warm, beautiful energy passing through you, just washing away any tension in the body at all. The three key areas to focus on if you want to do a quick muscular relaxation are the back of the tongue, the solar plexus, and the psoas muscles, which run down the front of the hips on either side of the hips. And if you can just relax those areas, you feel whole regions of your body relax, which covers quite a bit of territory. As you let go, feel a beautiful, beautiful healing energy pouring down into you from above and rising up into you from below, from Mother Earth herself. Let's take a moment to drop our grounding cord from the root chakra down into the earth, connecting your grounding cord to the center of the earth, and drawing that earth energy back up into the body, the soles of the feet, rising up the legs, up the core of your body, the central meridian, which runs right in front of the spine, all the way up to the crown, up and out the top of your head. And send that cord of energy, beautiful, visualize it as a beautiful, luminous, golden white light, which is your core of enlightenment inside your body. Visualize it exiting through the top of your head and going out into the celestial realms, out into formless space, connecting with anything you choose that symbolizes to you divine energy. It might be a star or a spiral galaxy or a bunch of angels or ascended masters. Feel these beings, or feel the star system, or whatever you connect with. Feel it pouring energy, divine energy, down into you through the top of your head, filling you up, filling up your aura and your body. Beautiful golden white light. It's very relaxing and healing. Just breathe it in. Allow it to permeate every cell of your body, soaking it up in every cell. Trillions of cells, like miniature sponges, soaking up this beautiful, healing, golden white light. Filling you up so much that the light shoots out your fingertips and shoots out the tips of your toes. And feel the joy and the love that comes from this energy, both the energy from below, from Mother Earth, and the energy from above, from Father Sky. Feel the love and the joy that it is made of. And it's what you are made of. It's what each of us is made of. Love. Love energy. Just allow yourself to be with that. Feeling the love. And you might put a little smile on your face, which is a cheat, but it helps you to feel joyful, feel loving, feel your heart center opening. The smile releases happy hormones from the endocrine system into the body. It's a very real thing. It's not just new age stuff. It's actual science. So while you hold this beautiful space of love and joy in your body, I'm going to say a prayer and an invocation for our call today. We call on the Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God, the self that we all are. We call on all the ascended masters, all the angels, all the divine beings who surround us in the highest love and support. All who are known and all who are unknown. We invite you into this sacred circle, and we ask that you please surround us. The cocoon of beautiful, healing, golden white light and love. Fill us up with this energy throughout the call today, helping us to feel rejuvenated and joyful and full of love. Please hold our hands. Walk us along this path into our soul's highest purpose. Guide our conversation today into the highest love and the highest wisdom. And we give great thanks for this opportunity to be together, to share our love, to share this sacred space and to have a virtual community where we can do this, where we can share love and joy with deep, deep gratitude. Alalaho. Alalaho meaning, isn't it wonderful in Tibetan? So thank you, everybody. And now when you feel ready, slowly bring your awareness back into your body and into the room. And you can stay in meditation if you like. But if you need to multitask, I understand. And you can start to wiggle your fingers and toes. Slowly begin to open your eyes. And again, I remind you, you can just stay meditative, whatever is happening for you. Even if you're multitasking, just relax. Allow yourself this couple of hours to just be relaxed and receive the beauty of the Shakti and the gift of the love that's coming in right now, filling our circle, this field that we're all creating together, actually. So thank you everybody for showing up today, and I would like, without further ado, to announce our special guest today. We don't always have special guests, but I was very, very guided to call our friend Stephanie Austin, world-renowned astrologer, professional astrologer, and longtime core lighter. And Stephanie, we are just so grateful that you're available to come and be with us today and share with us about the current astrology, which I know is very powerful. So welcome, Stephanie. Can you hear us? Barbara, have you unmuted Stephanie? Barbara, I see that you are muted. Let me see if I can help. I'm going to unmute Stephanie. Stephanie, are you there?
Yes. There. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Stephanie. So I invite you to speak about whatever you'd like to speak about. There's so much to share, I know.
Okay. As we're all sensing, we're in extraordinary times, and astrology offers a language of energy to confirm what we're sensing on a deeper level. We're in the middle of two important eclipses. Eclipses are extra powerful new moons and full moons. Every month we have a new and full moon, but only every 6 months do the sun, moon, and earth align more precisely, kind of funneling more intensely the cosmic energies that are downloading on the planet. On November 30th, we had a lunar eclipse, which is an extra powerful full moon. And they were highlighting the signs that are in place, that are in high focus this year. The sun is in Sagittarius right now. During that eclipse, the moon was in Gemini, the opposite sign. And those are the two signs, two archetypes that speak most to truth and wisdom and information. And as we're immersed in information overload these days, this is, some are calling this the age of information, because we have just so much access, which is wonderful, and also comes with its shadow side. And this last eclipse especially highlighted the contrast between fact and fabrication. How do we know what's true? How do we know what is actually happening? What is our interpretation of that? Gemini is a sign that deals most with information, communication, facts, the left brain, you could say, analysis, logic, and so on. Sagittarius is about perspective, our interpretation of that. What do we make of that? It's like the difference between the 6 o'clock news of this, and this happened, and then the editorial. What does that mean? And so this eclipse especially was highlighting the contrast. And there was another piece that was very important, adding to that. Neptune, which is the energy of unity consciousness, unconditional love, multidimensional awareness, is almost exactly squaring those 2 points in the sky, the Gemini-Sagittarius polarity. And so it offers an additional message that in order to know the truth, we have to come back to the heart, that we all have a truth meter in the middle of our chest. And if something doesn't resonate, if it is leading to separation and fear rather than unity and connection and joy, it's probably not true. So this eclipse especially was encouraging us, reminding us that we have to run everything by our inner truth meter. Just because something is on the internet or on the news, we can't automatically assume, unfortunately, that it's true. People have vested interest in slanting things to make money, to be in power, and so on. So it's never been more important, I think, to keep that in mind, that we have to become our own authority of what is true, our own judge of what is true. And that's one of the main themes of 2020. This year we've had an extraordinary alignment that only occurs every 735 years, an alignment between Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in Capricorn. And in essence, that is about reclaiming our power. Putting it in Corlite Leslie terms, it's looking at and resolving the victim-tyrant polarity, the rebel, victim-tyrant, savior archetypes. That has been in place for thousands of years. And so this year, we've been going through this great, what I call the Great Reset, the slowdown, the lockdowns, the disruption of virtually everyone on the planet, in order for us to be able to see more deeply and clear more deeply this pattern, to reclaim our power and authority, to not automatically project it on someone who has a white coat or a position of power, but to know that we all have access to divine intelligence, and that we need to claim that responsibility, that we have that power within ourselves to ascertain, discern what is true. Okay. We have another eclipse coming up on December 14th. That will be a solar eclipse. These eclipses run in 19-year cycles, so we could think back to 2001 for a reference point for this year's eclipses. Every year there are at least 4, sometimes 6, and occasionally 7 eclipses, and they occur in these 19-year cycles. So 2001 was a huge year, especially for the United States in terms of a 9/11 event. So that's one thing, and for each one of us personally, we probably can think back what was happening in 2001 for a reference. And what that means is something is spiraling around, something that was important that year for us is either coming around for completion and release, or it needs to go to the next level. Okay. This eclipse, the next one is coming up on December 14th, will be in Sagittarius, which is, again, the sign that deals the most with truth, perception, wisdom, how we frame things, how we make sense of things, what our experience has shown us to be true, what we believe to be reality, and our very framework for existence. So that's one thing that's happening. These eclipses always involve something called the lunar nodes, the north and south nodes, and those are actually points in space that are determined by the position of the sun, moon, and earth. They represent the intersection between those 3 orbits. And so they represent the connection between the sun, representing consciousness, the moon, the soul, and earth, the incarnation of soul onto matter, onto the physical plane. So eclipses remind us of our interconnectedness and help us remember our soul intentions. The north node, where the moon appears to be crossing the ecliptic in a northerly direction, represents what I like to call our spiritual frontier, where we're heading this lifetime. And the south node, where the moon appears to be descending down below the ecliptic, indicates the past, what we're leaving behind, what has been important perhaps in the past, but is all now an old pattern that is holding us back. These nodes, again, have a 19-year cycle. We all have them in our chart, and how they intersect in our chart contains a tremendous amount of information about our spiritual path. So even if you just know your birthday, not everybody knows their birth time, but even if you just know a little bit about your north and south nodes, you can have a tremendous amount of information about your spiritual journey this lifetime. For all of us right now, the north node is in Gemini, and the south node is in Sagittarius. That's for about 18 months. There's 12 signs in the zodiac, 19-year cycles. About approximately every 18 months, the nodes change signs. And they're the one thing in astrology that move primarily retrograde. So it's interesting that that's another big piece of it, that it represents the return to the source, going back to the oneness, right? Coming from the oneness, and of course our journey back to unity consciousness. So with the transiting North Node in Gemini, for all of us, we're wanting to embody and embrace the high road of Gemini, which is open-mindedness, curiosity, knowing that there are many ways to look at things, to not get too entrenched in what we think is the only way to look at things. And that it would be the shadow side of Sagittarius, dogmatism, fanaticism, thinking that we have the answer and everyone should be looking at things as we see them, getting very rigid in our way of looking at things. It's interesting that Donald Trump has those nodes in his chart. His North Node is in Gemini, his Sun is in Gemini, and his South Node is in Sagittarius. So he is embodying, I would think, the shadow sides of those two signs, the rigidity, the dogmatism of the Sagittarian South Node. And then he has not gone very far toward that North Node in Gemini, being open-minded and willing to consider new information. So that's one big piece that's happening this year. And then the Neptune squaring the North and South Node, that will continue because Neptune moves very slowly. It has a 168-year orbit, so it moves very slowly. So it's kind of hovering in that place of squaring the North and South Node from Pisces. And so adding its very powerful energy of encouraging us to trust our intuition and our inner guidance, to not let what looks like the authority of facts or what appears to be facts supersede what our inner guidance tells us. Okay. This year, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto have been within a few degrees of each other. And as I mentioned, the last time that happened was many years ago, 1784 to 1785. And in my research, three things were happening around that time were very, very important that are spiraling around again. That's a major conjunction, a major alignment that is quite powerful. And it coming around again this year marks the end of an era, the closing of a way of being. Back in the late 13th century, this was the beginning of our modern banking system. The Knights Templar had become the Crusades. When people were going to the Holy Lands, they had to find a way of securing their money because they were often robbed along the way. And so the Knights Templar began a system where they would protect people's assets and then give them a writ, a symbol of what they had in order to reclaim it farther down the road or when they came back. So our financial system, our entire way of working with, that might not seem like a big deal now, but for the times, that was quite a revolutionary shift. The first banking systems. Marco Polo was coming back from China, the Silk Road at that time in the late 13th century, beginning to open up east and west trade and bringing back things that were quite revolutionary again for that time. Eyeglasses, coal, gunpowder, and printed money. The Chinese were actually printing money on, I forget what it was, birch bark or some kind of tree. And again, revolutionary things. And now, in the last few years, China has initiated a new Silk Road. It's building has a project called One Belt, One Road, which is a $900 billion project, a land and maritime route that will connect 80 countries and 2/3 of the world's population. So again, increasing the information flow and the commerce between East and West. And also back in the late 13th century, that was the beginning of our shift from natural cycles to mechanized time. The first church clocks were coming into being. And for the first time in history, we were no longer regulated by the sun and moon, by going to bed when the sun went down and getting up at sunrise, but having another way of keeping time. So that, again, we don't think of that as being anything at this state, but that was quite revolutionary back in the late 13th century. So this eclipse that happens this year, the Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, is indicative of the readiness to go to the next level in terms of our financial system, our relationship with nature and natural cycles. We all know the major issues of global warming and how we have misused the earth and need to come back into right relationship with nature and a co-creative relationship with nature. And then the east and west polarity, which can be looked at in a number of ways. The west being generally materialistic, more linear, left brain based. East being, archetypally more intuitive and spiritually based. So the reconnection between those two polarities and archetypes. So it's been an incredible year, a very hard year for most people, but a necessary time and opportunity for us to look at these major systems and see what needs to be changed. Obviously, there are many, many issues that are critical and need to be changed. And what's happening on the winter solstice this year, and actually very shortly in the next few weeks, two of those three planets that have been concentrated in Capricorn, the sign of authority, government, institutions, resources, and so on, are going to shift from Capricorn to Aquarius, which is a very different energy, okay, from earth to air, from the energy of material focus to ideas, to group consciousness, to progress and change, to co-creation, collaboration, and greater equality. Aquarius, we've all heard of the coming of the age of Aquarius. There's a lot of debate as to when that actually happens and what the date is, but there's no doubt that we're in a transition time. And in a few days, Jupiter moves into Aquarius, Saturn re-enters Aquarius, and then on the winter solstice this year, they will conjunct at the very beginning of Aquarius. And the last time they were conjunct, okay, so this Jupiter and Saturn come together every 20 years, so by itself, not a huge deal. Whenever they do, there are shifts in social and political systems, but only every 600 years or so do they conjunct in Aquarius. And the last time they did so was in 1405. Quite rare and remarkable. That was the beginning of the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the early Renaissance. I couldn't find in my research a lot of events that happened in 1405, but when we're looking at a long cycle like this, these things start to emerge, in a few decades. So within a few decades of that last conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, Aquarius, it was the death of Tamerlane, the great Mongol emperor, and the beginning of that decline. It was the end of the fall of Constantinople, fell to the Ottoman Turks, the end of the Byzantine Empire. There was a lot of developments with the Medici Bank in Italy, the family and the banking industry there. The Gutenberg Bible was printed in 1454. That was a huge development in that time. And so on. But this means now for us is it's an initiation, a new threshold, and signaling a readiness for all of us to make a big shift from emerging from Capricorn, which at its worst can be authoritarian, controlling, top-down, hierarchical ways of doing things, to Aquarius, which is egalitarian, humanitarian, recognizing that we're all in this together, that we're all part of the human family, being able to go beyond the superficial differences of race and religion and skin color and gender to see our common humanity. So it represents a very exciting initiation, and coming on the winter solstice makes it even stronger. I did some research on this, and as best as I could find with my astrology program going back 4,000 years, it has not happened. This conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius on a winter solstice has not happened in the last 5,000 years. So that makes it quite a remarkable event. The solstices, which occur twice a year, are when the sun appears to rise. For 3 days, it appears to rise at the same point on the horizon, and then slowly starts to climb higher in the sky at the winter solstice, and at the summer solstice, slowly starts to descend. During that time, there are electromagnetic effects that happen on on the Earth that are quite powerful. The Earth's magnetic field temporarily weakens for about a 72-hour period around the solstices, and so a greater influx of cosmic energy is able to be downloaded into the Earth and into each one of us. So the fact that there's this conjunction of Jupiter, which represents our belief system, our framework, it rules Sagittarius. So it's very much about how we look at things, our perception of reality, and then Saturn, the forms, the structures, the institutions that codify those beliefs, that establish those as the current reality. So there's a new initiation in terms of how we frame things and and the institutions that hold that framework. And that framework is wanting to be embodied in Aquarius, the sign of the new age. So very exciting times that we live in. There's much more I could say, but I'll leave, if you would like, let you ask if you have any other questions, if anything wasn't clear. I'm happy to elaborate on that.
Thank you, Stephanie. I do have a question. Could you please remind us, what did you say happens every 5,000 years? That, to me, that seemed like a very important milestone marker.
Okay, yeah. So Jupiter and Saturn conjunct every 20 years. The last time they conjuncted in Aquarius was over 600 years ago. And as far as I can tell, they have not conjuncted in Aquarius on the winter solstice in the last 5,000 years. It could be longer. It could be 10,000 years. I don't know. I don't have the capacity to do that kind of calculation beyond 3000 BC, unfortunately. If anyone knows, I would love to know. But as far as I can tell, this has not happened in the last 5,000 years.
Well, see, that's an amazing cycle, because that encompasses essentially all of patriarchy. That was the beginning of patriarchy. It was when the Bible was written. It was when those first patriarchs started to tell us how evil women are, and all those things that are falling away now. That we're moving into the new paradigm now. So that to me is very significant. And that happens, you say, on the solstice that happens, right? I mean, I know obviously it's a very long cycle, but it is a milestone on the solstice, though. Yeah.
Yes, within a few hours of each other. Let's see if I had the times here. The winter solstice, I believe, is like around 2 o'clock, and then this conjunction is around 8 o'clock. So within hours of each other, which is quite extraordinary.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And I wanted to ask you, Stephanie, what I've heard from many sources now about how powerful this particular solstice is, and you've just explained some of it astrologically. But I've also heard from people that there's a very powerful ceremony that's going to happen at Uluru, held by some of the Aboriginal elders. Without going into the details, it's just they're saying that it's momentous for the entire Earth. It's a once in a lifetime, not once in a lifetime, but it's once several millennia cycle that this happens. So, do you have any advice for us about what we can do on the solstice to make the most of whatever the opportunity is going to be?
Being in meditation and prayer and any kind of ritual would be extremely powerful. Yes. So I believe there's a link up. You could connect with that meditation, or probably the others as well. But yes, I think to hold the intention of birthing the new reality, whatever our personal way of doing that would be greatly empowered. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, eclipses are extra powerful times for meditation. They say that it's magnifying 10,000 times to do any kind of practice on an eclipse. And I would imagine it would be the same for this conjunction, which is called a great conjunction, Jupiter-Saturn, meaning they have this longer cycle, and they embody these collective archetypes. So yes, any kind of meditation, prayer, gathering, group, intention would be greatly amplified and empowered on the winter solstice this year.
Wonderful. I have heard from some other people, spiritual teachers and people who I respect, have said similar things. They've said that if you're going to do anything, do it on this solstice. Do some kind of ceremony. Do something to mark it, whatever it is for you, but do something. So that's what I hear you saying. You're echoing that.
Yeah, yeah. Every conjunction represents the beginning of a new cycle, the closing of one, one pattern, one belief, one way of being, and the initiation to the next level. And so those thresholds are when things can shift quite radically, especially with our intention. So the more that we can go with that, the more easily the new world comes in.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Barbara, I know you often have excellent questions and insights. So Barbara, is there anything that you would like to ask Stephanie?
Well, very synchronistically, Brad. I was just feeling, as Stephanie has been sharing with us about the solstice and this completion of the patriarchy, that part of the meditative practice we might consider doing is cord cutting. And I mean cord cutting for the whole patriarchal paradigm. As we sit.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
So
and let go of
completing
all.
the 5,000.
Yes. Yes. And letting go of all that no longer serves feels very empowering to me.
Beautiful.
So thank you,
I'll join
Stephanie.
You in that.
Yeah. Yes. That feels really, really good. So thank you, Stephanie. This is wonderful. And, were there questions? Yeah, Brad, were there questions also that Stephanie raised that you were going to share with everyone?
Well, I guess I would just like to say that one of the reasons I invited Stephanie to join us today was because I read her recent astrology report, and every single thing she said was exactly what I was getting that I was supposed to talk about. And I thought, okay, well, this will be perfect because we get to see how the astrology backs up what these themes are at this time. So everything, Stephanie, that you said to me feels right on, and it's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. So, so thank you for sharing with us. And is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close out?
I don't think so. I mean, there's other things, but the important thing to remember is to come back to the heart, to trust our inner truth meter. I can't emphasize that enough, that that's our best source, and very important to keep tuning in to see what resonates for us, not to give our power away.
Beautiful. Yeah, I concur 200%. And, one of the things that I was going to be sharing later in the call is about this very thing where what I'm feeling is that we're being invited to feel the power of the heart over the power of the mind. The mind wants to suck us into the fear and to all kinds of scenarios. And it's our opportunity to actually think with the heart rather than thinking with the mind. So that's like you say, it's using our intuition. It's coming back to love all the time.
Yeah. Yes.
Deciding for ourselves, using our own discernment, using our own intuition, feeling what our heart's telling true, and using that as our truth meter.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Barbara, anything else before we move on?
No, I think that's really wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephanie. That is so helpful.
I'm glad.
Yes. Thank you again. And if there's time at the end, Stephanie, we'll invite you back to say a few closing words if you want to, based on what's come up during the call. And also, I'd like to invite everybody on the call, if you have questions for Stephanie or me or Barbara, you can write them in on the board. Barbara, would you like to share how people can do that? And if we have time at the end, we'll read some of the questions.
Yes. If you are joining us via the web, there is a place for you to write your comments. It's not possible if you're calling in by phone, only if you are dialing in through the web. And so you can write your comments on the board, and I will then go and check them and read them at the end if there's time. So is that
Thank you. Yeah.
sufficient?
And if you're Yes, that's great. Thank you, Barbara. And if you happen to be new to these calls, we do invite you to email your questions in or sharings in advance. And you know, we try to take take as many questions as we possibly can, and read as many sharings as we can at the end of these calls. So thank you everybody for participating. I feel like your participation is important. This isn't just about us speaking and saying what we see. This, I feel like when people share, when people ask questions, it becomes more of a collaboration, which is very important, that we do this as a community. So I thank you, all of you who've been writing in. We've had quite a few actually, which actually today what I'd like to do is start with one of them because it segues into what I wanted to talk about. So I think that's what we'll do next. I'm going to read to you one of the emails I received after the November Spiritual Weather Report. So let me pull it up here. I'm going to read it to you. Okay. This person says, I tried to listen, and Barbara, there's some feedback coming from somewhere. Can you hear that? I don't know what it is. I think I'm going to mute. There we go. Okay. So here we go. So this person wrote me an email right after the last Spiritual Weather Report in November, and she said, I tried to listen to the Spiritual Weather Report broadcast for November, Brad, but as I heard you derail the rhetoric of quote-unquote mainstream media as you usually do and adopt a middle-of-the-road attitude, not the same as the middle way, I shut the computer down and I'm writing about my concerns. Ask Leslie how she felt as the struggle against apartheid in South Africa intensified. Ask her if she took sides against injustice, against apartheid, or whether she believed the apartheid side had intelligence and merit. We in the USA are fighting against probably the biggest con man in our history, and now the emperor has no clothes. And that is because of the fight by the people, including the journalists and reporters not afraid to speak the truth, not because of the passive refusal to take sides. You can sit in a bubble in South Africa while climate extremes, pandemics, dictatorship, and racism ravage a lot of the world and say both sides have merit. I believe there's an evil empire, and it takes the innocent to shout, the emperor is wearing no clothes. Say no to injustice and dominance within and without. Spiritual warfare is real, and social activism, something you stand for, involves a fight. I also feel that the patriarchy is undergoing a metamorphosis and is still in the chrysalis stages. Inside of the end of the patriarchal structures, we may see a birth of a hybrid form with power and wisdom joining forces. Let's hope. I don't want to demean your teachings, and I'm grateful for the work you are doing in the spiritual world. I feel passionate about the struggle for truth within and without. Whew, okay. So there's a lot to talk about here, and I want to ask for your forgiveness in advance. I want to ask for your, let's just say I call in your ability to be in a witness mode, because I meditated on whether or not to talk about this, to share this with you, but I got a yes to do it because I feel that this person is probably speaking for many people, and it feels important to address. So first, let's address the issue of anger. It's okay to be angry. It is natural in situations like this to feel angry, and not suppressing it and letting it out is good. But I would also add that it does hurt people when you project energy at them like that. So I think we all need to be very careful of what we're doing with our anger. there are ways to witness anger and to vent our anger without projecting it at people and hurting them. So I just want to say that to all of us. I mean, this applies to everybody. So I feel like that's a very important aspect of this. And I'll also start by saying, I just want to be clear. I'm not telling anybody to do anything. I'm happy to share my perspective, and I'm happy to tell you what's true for me. But I'm certainly not telling anybody what to do. I would never want to do that. And above all, we are all responsible for ourselves, and you need to do what you feel is right for you to do. But it seems like to me what the main issue that this person is expressing anger about is, how can you not take a side? And that's the point I wanted to address here. And I do ask you to bear with me. If this is stirring up shadow for you, if it's stirring up anger for you, please bear with me. So to this, I would say, yes, absolutely. In some instances, it is critical. It's very important to stand up for the cause that you believe in, to stand for equality and justice and peace, love, freedom, truth, all the higher ideals. And I think we all agree on that. That is really a place where we all come together. I'm certainly not saying that it's not important sometimes to get off your meditation cushion and take action, like go march in the streets or whatever you feel you need to do. It's definitely important sometimes for some people to do that. And I would add also, I'm not saying that being passive is being spiritual or anything like that. That's certainly not something I believe. And I'm not saying to just try to remain neutral because you should never take sides. I'm not saying you should never rock the boat or protest or anything like that. But what's happening here is very tricky territory. So again, please bear with me, and I invite you to not close the computer, not shut your ears, but please, I invite you to listen to the end of this, because I'd like to make a point, and I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. But I think this is an issue for all of us to explore. So I'm very aware of what a lot of people who are in third dimensional consciousness think. And I'm not saying that this is what this person who wrote this email is doing. I'm not trying to demean her point. I think she's making an excellent point. That's why I'm bringing it up here. But I do want to talk for a moment about 3D consciousness. 3D meaning the third dimension, meaning the system of separation or the system of duality or whatever, the patriarchy, whatever you'd like to call it. And in that system, people are polarized. So 3D consciousness would say that it's weak to not take a side, that it's weak to not fight, that you're just being a doormat if you don't fight. And so what I want to call attention to here is this particular issue, that this is very limited thinking. This is seeing just the black and the white. It's not seeing the million shades of gray in between. And we have touched on this in previous calls, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But it's basically saying, if you're not with me, you're against me. And that is one of the lowest forms of consciousness that we can choose to indulge in. That's being immersed in the system of separation. It's being locked into the duality, into the polarization. And it's the consciousness of us against them, or me against the world. It doesn't allow room for a middle way. And that's how wars begin. It's essentially the consciousness of war. So like I say, it's very tricky territory. We have to be very careful here about what's going on. That's why I want to continue talking about this. And I'm grateful that this woman wrote this email. It's important that we talk about it. And what I reflected on as I was, trying to formulate what to say about this, I reflected on whenever I've marched in the streets, and I've done that a lot in my life since I came of age in the 1980s. There's been plenty to protest about, and And it's always been protesting for these higher ideals that I named before. All the things that I know we all believe in: equality and freedom and peace and justice and truth, and on and on and on. And so it's great to go out and shout about it and vent your anger and say what you're for. And it feels really good to do that when you believe strongly in something, in an important cause. And also I want to add, in these instances, it's very important to practice nonviolence. Always important to practice nonviolence in these situations. And also important to mention that marching in the streets is not for everybody. For some people, it's just not their role to do that. But we each have to do whatever our heart is telling us to do. And I know for some people, that's what they need to do. So anyway, I want to this is my point, coming back to my point. And I just want to, if you zoned out, I want to bring you back, because this is the point of today. And here it is. I'm going to underscore it for you. This is the point, that in the instances where we want to take action, I think we need to be 110% certain that we know the truth, that we know that what we're protesting for is accurate, and that we're not being manipulated by the media, or we're not being duped by people in positions of authority. And I think what's happening right now, the issue, is that we don't really know the truth. We don't really know the truth. We don't really know what's actually going on. And I think a lot of people think they know what's going on, but what do we really know? We know what we're being told. We know, what we hear, and that's about it. And we've got a lot of opinions and beliefs based on what we've been told. But how do we know that what we've been told is true? On either side. This is not partisan. I'm not talking about either. This is both sides. So it comes back to what the astrology, what Stephanie was saying. It's very important that we reflect on this. And as I've mentioned on our calls frequently, I like to track all the different narratives that are out there. There are people I love on both sides of this particular polarity, the left and the right. And just last month, we talked about the growing divide between liberals and conservatives, not just in the U.S., but worldwide, and how the media is fueling this. And I have to say, it's absolutely extraordinary to me. It's surreal. And I feel like, I'm walking around pinching myself. And sometimes I feel like I'm in the middle of a Fellini movie or something. And I just wonder if you're feeling this. Are you aware of this? Have you? I don't know if you're following both the narratives. There are more than two narratives, but two main narratives. Are you following this, especially in the U.S. lately? It is surreal. And if you follow both sides, you'll know that both are accusing each other of a coup d'etat. And that's what's building here. The conservative side is saying that there's been voter fraud and that they're going to be releasing this mountain of evidence of cheating, mass cheating. And the liberal side is saying, but we won, and now you have to leave. And the conservative side is saying, but we're not going to leave because it's our duty to protect the Constitution and voters' rights. And then the liberal side is saying, but you're lying, and you're a military dictator. And then the conservative side says, well, you just want to impose mandatory vaccines and masks and take away our freedoms. And then the liberal side says, but you're the one taking away freedoms. And you have many people who think that Trump is a light worker, and other people are comparing him to Hitler. And it just goes on and on. It's back and forth. And each side thinks that the other one is delusional, or at best is delusional and evil at worst. And so it's this ping pong match. And any argument that one side comes up with, the other side says the exact opposite thing about the other side. So there's this standoff that we're all in the middle of. And who is right? And if you follow the two narratives, if you really track them carefully, and I'm not just talking about cursory, and if you really follow these narratives, both sides seem right depending on which media you watch. And I've watched both, and they're both very convincing. And I know that probably makes a lot of people angry to hear that, and it might make you want to hang up. But before you hang up, before you close your computer, I would like to invite you to just bear with me a little bit longer and suspend disbelief for just a little while. And please just listen through to the end, because I think there's more to share around all of this. There's more that we can explore, and I think we can have a healing together. And let's be honest, if we can't do this as spiritual seekers, if we can't do this as people who all have the intention to live in love, it's not going to be possible for the world to do this. So I would invite you to just, again, suspend judgment for just a little while longer, and let's keep going. And so I guess I would add to all of this, to be fair, that before I go marching in the streets for either side, I'm going to practice the only thing that I know how to do. And that's what we've been talking about on these calls for a long time. And it's practicing that very ancient spiritual practice, which is sometimes called neither believing nor disbelieving. And it's about holding, Carl Jung called it, holding the tension between the two sides of a polarity and allowing for the possibility of a third option to manifest. And this is the middle way. This is truly the middle way. And so that's what I'm calling for. I'm not calling for this other kind of, just be passive because it's spiritual. That's not what this is about. So I want to be very clear about this. This is about standing in our witness, which is what Leslie taught us for 25 years, how to be in the witness and how to choose love, how to keep our hearts open. So it's about not buying into fear, not buying into blame. It's about using our discernment. It's about keeping an open mind, and it's about questioning. And what I would say right now, to echo what Stephanie was saying about the astrology, that this time more than ever is about questioning everything. Keeping an open mind and questioning everything, because we don't know. And this is not weakness. This is maybe the most challenging and most courageous practice we can possibly engage in right now. To remain okay with being in the unknown and to not ground on the information that we're being given. And I know we talked about that last month as well. Not grounding on the information. And it's difficult to do. It's very difficult. So this is not for the faint of heart, this practice. And if you're on this call, I congratulate you, because I think we're some of the chosen few who are venturing into these rough waters, navigating this challenging territory. So I thank you for showing up for this, and thank you for bearing with me as we talk about it and we explore it a little further. So I would say, no matter how we feel about either candidate or either party, would you not agree that if it's true that there's been voter fraud, it would be very important to know about it? I mean, that's the essence of democracy. So that's the basis, the foundation of our way of life, we think, in the United States. So personally, I'm just in waiting mode. I'm waiting to be shown evidence. I'm waiting to see how this plays out. I'm doing the spiritual practice like I just described. And I wanted to just bring up a little memory here. This has come up for me lately. Maybe it's come up for you. I don't know. And you remember the 2000 election, the U.S. presidential election. There were a lot of accusations of voter fraud during that one. And I'm not just talking about the kind that the media told us about. It went way beyond that. And I remembered recently that there was a documentary made in 2006 about the potential cheating by using electronic voting machines. And that documentary was called Hacking Democracy. We taught a course once back in, I don't know, it was 2008 or 9 or 10, or somewhere in there, that we had people watch this. So if you were on that course, you remember it, but you may remember it. And again, it's called Hacking Democracy, and you can find it online at hackingdemocracy.com. It was made by HBO, and it was nominated for an Emmy Award, so it's not some fringe thing. It was a mainstream documentary. And you can get it on Amazon and Vimeo and other formats for rent or purchase. But I want to point out that at that time, in the 2000 campaign, the roles were reversed. It was the other party that was accused of stealing the election with this method of the rigged machines, made by the same company. Made by the same company. It's the company that's being accused this time is the same one that was accused then, and the name of that company is Dominion. And isn't that a very interesting name, Dominion, for for this kind of company? And apparently they supply like 60 or 80% of our machines in the United States, voting machines. And I was fascinated by that movie, Hacking Democracy, because it presented some very compelling evidence. And one of the points that the movie made was that the voter fraud investigators who wanted to examine the software inside the machines to see if it could be rigged to flip votes, they were told, no, you can't. You can't see the software because it's quote unquote proprietary. And that means that essentially that it's copyrighted software, and therefore it's illegal to force the company to reveal the software because that would be an infringement of their rights. So now we've got the same company in the spotlight again for the same thing, and they're using the same argument about proprietary software. And so when I thought about this, I saw this coming up in the news, and I had deja vu, and I just thought, what, WTF? Doesn't this seem a little crazy that, our country that is supposed to be the leader of the free world allows this? We're allowing a privately owned company to count all our votes, but they don't have to tell us how they're doing it, and they don't have to show investigators, that the machines are not rigged. I mean, how is this happening? How is this possible? It seems insane to me, and it's part of the surreal quality of these times. And it makes you ask the question, what is really going on here? I don't claim to know. I'm not saying that cheating happened. I have no idea. But I think before we just dismiss accusations like this, it's very important to keep an open mind and not to jump on to one side of a polarity just because we tend to identify with one side. When the shoe was on the other foot, however many years ago, 20 years ago, it didn't feel so good. So because the last time this happened, the two parties were on opposite sides of the polarity, it's not partisan. This is not about partisan. It's much more about the bigger picture. It's much more about freedom and the issue of, do we really have a democracy? And so I can understand how this conversation would make a lot of people angry, and it would certainly stir up shadow. And so if that's happening to you right now, I understand and I apologize, but I ask you to please don't shoot the messenger. I'm just naming something that's actually there, it's sitting there, And I feel like as a community, it's important for us to be able to witness this and name it and examine it. So again, I was meditating on whether or not to talk about all this today because of this potential for it to stir up shadow. But when the shadow's already there, I feel like, you know, it's important to bring it up. And I felt like I was invited to, in a way. I wouldn't have done it on my own, but I felt like because I received that email, I was invited to talk about this, and it's better to do it. So, you know, that's what Leslie trained us all for. If you've been around, most of you have been around Corelight for a long time. And Leslie trained us to do this for 25 years, to have the courage to take a look at shadow. And she gave us fantastic tools to be able to process the shadow, to release it, and to heal it. And so I had this idea that maybe we could all go through a little exercise together today around this. So it's a shadow clearing, fear clearing exercise. And if you feel like you're up for it, we might be able to clear some of this shadow and some of the fear around these current issues that we're facing. And if you're not up for it, there's certainly no judgment. This is up to you. I leave it in your hands what you want to do. But if you're up for it, let's give it a try together right now. So if you're multitasking, this is a great time to pause, just stop. This won't take too long. But I invite you to just get back into a meditation, to sit in a chair or lie on the floor, whatever you want to do. But close your eyes. Take a few long, slow, deep breaths. And relax and let go. And I invite you right now to call in your witness self. It's that part of you that is connected with your higher self. It's that part of you that is the fulcrum of the teeter-totter, the seesaw being the dance of duality, the swing of the polarities. And your witness is that neutral part of you that can hold the tension between both sides in non-judgment. And that's true, who we truly are, actually. That is our connection with our soul. The witness self is the stepping stone towards the realization of the self with a capital S. The witness is the beginning of our enlightenment. So I invite you to step into that right now. Call in your witness. And if you've been around Corelight for a while, you know you can find this easily by putting your attention in the cave of Brahman, which is the spot in the middle of the head. And if you're new, I'm not going to go into it right now. There are other ways we can share that with you. Some of our guided meditations on our web store have information about it if it interests you. But it's a quick, easy thing to do if you want to get into that witness self. Put your attention in the middle of your head, the cave of Brahman. Or sometimes you can find it by putting your attention in the heart, right in the center of your chest, in the heart chakra. So I invite you to go there while you breathe deeply. Just breathing in the light and breathing out the shadow. Remembering that you are the witness. You are the perceiver of emotion. The emotions pass through us. We are not the emotions. Emotions are just vibrations. And we are the perceiver of those vibrations. That's who we truly are. It's the perceiver, the pure awareness. So I invite you to find that part of you that knows that. So it's just a reminder. And now as you hold that beautiful place, I'm going to invite you to imagine a what-if scenario. And I'm going to talk you through, while you continue to relax and breathe, I'm going to talk you through a what-if scenario And I invite you for just these few moments to suspend disbelief. Breathe and suspend your opinions. Breathe in neutrality and breathe out all the judgments you might be holding on to around political parties and candidates and all the issues that are up at the moment, all the shadow stuff. Just let it go for right now. And so before I talk you through the what-if scenario, I just want to be clear. I am not saying that this is what's actually happening because I do not know. This is simply a what if this were true scenario. So breathing deeply, and from this place of the neutral observer or the neutral witness, I'd like you in your mind's eye to visualize the two polarized sides in front of you. One on the left hand and one on the right. And you can say that the one on the left is the blue side and the one on the right is the red side, if you want. You can visualize the face of the politician that represents each side if you want. You can visualize the symbol for each political party if you want. The one on the left would be the donkey and the one on the right would be the elephant. And if you're not an American, then you can fill in the blank with your own polarized situation in your country because it's happening everywhere, all over the world. It is not unique to the United States. So please, fill it in, fill in the blanks. Breathing deeply, remembering the witness. And if you're someone who is strongly identified with one of these sides, again, I invite you for just a few moments to suspend any judgments that you might have against the other side and see if you can get into your heart around this polarity. See if you can find a place of non-judgment in your heart for the other side. See if you can experience tolerance for the other side. If you can, take it a step further. See if you can experience respect for the other side. If you can, take it another step. Can you experience compassion for the other side? And if you can't experience any of those, then I would invite you to just be as non-judgmental as you possibly can. As I said, just be in your witness as much as you can. And now I'm going to talk you through this what-if scenario. So visualize, as I said, visualize these two sides. And then what if? What if there were a puppet master controlling both sides? So I invite you to visualize a third party who's maybe in the shadows, but he's controlling both. It's someone we don't know, a shadowy figure in the middle, and above the two sides, controlling them like puppets on strings. So just see if you can visualize that, see how that feels to you. Just witness your feelings. And as you witness your feelings, remembering that you are the perceiver, you are the soul, having a human experience right now. and you're just feeling what your emotions are. And part of this what if scenario I'm going to present to you is, what if we are experiencing something that is a setup of some kind to get us to polarize against, quote unquote, the other side, whoever that happens to be for you? What if there were a shadow controller or a puppet master who stood to benefit enormously in terms of power and money and control by keeping people divided against each other and fueling the anger and the hatred between the two sides? What if the puppet master had the means to control the narrative on both sides so that each side could be manipulated into polarizing with the other side? What if the puppet master or a person or a group of people hiding behind a curtain, like in The Wizard of Oz, the wizard who's controlling everything, and he says, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. And what if that puppet master wanted the masses to be so emotionally involved in the dramas erupting, so full of fear and anger, blame, and other emotions, and so busy focusing on the dramas involved in the polarization that we were distracted from focusing on the real issue, which is the puppet master himself? Well, wouldn't that be brilliant? Wouldn't that be diabolical? Wouldn't that be an amazing way to maintain power and control? And so stay with this. Stay with your emotions. Stay with your witness. And from that place of the witness, pay attention to what you're feeling. Are you feeling fear or anger? And if you are, that would be a very, very natural response. But what are you feeling? Blame or confusion or doubt or sadness or overwhelm or whatever? Just observe whatever feelings are passing through. Just witness them. Whatever's happening for you emotionally right now, just feel it in your body, stay with it, and recognize that this is not who you are. Remember that fear, for example, is just a frequency. Anger is just a frequency. And you are the pure awareness, the love. And these frequencies of fear and whatever else are passing through you. You're the perceiver. You're witnessing this vibration that we call fear or whatever else passing through you, and it's leaving. So just welcome the fear and whatever else you're feeling. Say hello to it. Acknowledge it. Just let it be there. Let it be okay. And just watch it move through you. Feel the fear vibration as it passes through you and leaves. And you can visualize these shadowy energies as a dark cloud of energy in your body. And visualize maybe the sun shining on you, and like a cloud on a hot summer day, visualize this cloud dissipating and rising up in a mist, moving up and out of your body into your aura, floating away, burning off, dissolving into nothing as you let it burn away and leave your body, leave your aura. So just stay with this for a few more moments. We're almost done. Allow the energies to pass through and leave. Breathing in the light and breathing out the shadow. And now take that sun that you visualized outside your body burning off this cloud of negative emotion. I'd like you to reach up with your hands. You don't have to physically reach up. You can imagine that you are reaching up and taking hold of this sun, this beautiful, brilliant sun, which is made of pure love and pure light, and bring it down into your body through the crown chakra, bringing it down, and it is cleansing you of all these negative emotions that have just passed through and left. This beautiful love and light energy, bringing it down into your crown, into your third eye, to your throat, to your heart, all the way down to the solar plexus, to the navel chakra, all the way down, bringing it down to the root chakra, feeling this love energy, this light permeating you in every cell of your being. Holding the sun down in the root chakra for a few moments, letting it dissipate the fear completely, so that all that remains is the awareness of yourself as love, yourself as light. This is who you are. And you can repeat inwardly after me if you want to. I am the love. I am the light. I am pure awareness. And I release all these negative emotions. And I call in my witness. Where I stand in love, in courage, in the heart, in truth, in the light, which I truly am. And I give thanks. Thank you for this opportunity. You can repeat these words inwardly if you like. I give thanks. I am grateful for this opportunity. Alalaho, or Amen, or whatever you like to say. And that's the completion of the exercise. And now when you feel ready, slowly bring your awareness back into your body and in the room, and slowly wiggle your fingers and toes. Begin to open your eyes. Take a long, slow, deep breath. And coming back. So, whether or not this scenario is what's actually happening, it feels very important to at least acknowledge it. And that's what this exercise was partly about, because it certainly cannot be ruled out. So it deserves to be considered as a possible explanation for what's happening on our planet. And it certainly would explain a lot. But in my own personal experience, when I do this, it helps me to hold a stronger witness and to hold the middle way to do this exercise. And I know for some of you, this idea of a puppet master or some kind of shadow controller might be nothing new. But if this is new for you, and if it did bring up fear, it's important to remember that, and this is important for all of us actually, it's important to remember that the fear is coming up because it's passing through us and it's leaving. And this is our chance to name it and review it and just let it go. And I think that's part of this enormous opportunity that we're all being given as a collective right now. It's an enormous chance to face the fear and let it go. And to remember that the fear is all in our minds. Like we were talking about before with Stephanie, so much of the opportunity that we're being given is about learning to listen to our hearts and not our minds. Because the heart does not lie. And this is a magnificent setup, this thing that's going on in our world right now. I mean, it couldn't be more ideal for us to learn to become more heart-centered and to learn to attune to our hearts. So I hope you benefited from that exercise. I certainly hope it wasn't too hard for any of you, if you might be new to some of this. So if it was, I just invite you to repeat it, allow the sun to come and shine inside you. And just remember that the fear is not real. Fear is just a frequency. You can let it go. And before we're wrapping up here, but before I do, I wanted to share a little personal story with you. And this has been my personal experience of what brought me to this point of having to consider this puppet master scenario as one possibility of what might be going on our planet. And it started a long time ago, but I'm not going to tell you the whole story. But there was a milestone moment I'd like to share. And for me, this milestone moment was around the election of Obama in the first time. I was so excited, as I know many of you were. I was so excited that this man might become the president, and I read both his books, and I just thought, wow, how amazing is this? A man with an African father might become the U.S. president, and I was just ecstatic about it, and I really thought we had such a great chance at all the reforms of bringing more love and light into the world, and so equality and peace and so forth. And Leslie and I were teaching in Brazil at the time of the election in 2008. And we were leading this seminar. There were lots of people in the room. We had, I don't know, between probably 100 and 200 people in the room with us. And when the news came in that Obama had won, they asked me this group of Brazilians asked me to get up in front of the room and speak because I was the only American there, and they wanted to hear how I felt about it. And so I did. I stood up in front of the room, and I tried to explain to them how happy I was about it, and I literally started crying. And it's actually hard for me to cry, but I couldn't finish what I wanted to say. I was crying so much in front of this large audience. And I really believed that election was it, that was going to be a turning point, and that if we had any chance of some political candidate bringing in these kinds of reforms that so many of us have longed for, that he was the one who could do it. And so I thought we'd experience this massive change. But then, as time passed, and I think, we all started to see that the same basic policies of the former administrations, they not only continued, but they ramped up, and it was just such a disillusionment for me. I can't even tell you. The continual erosion of freedom, the continuation of the perpetual war, the growing dichotomy between rich and poor, the destruction of the environment and the pollution, and all these really significant policies that are really damaging life on our planet. They just got worse. And the penny dropped for me at that point. I realized that there had to be something else going on. besides what I knew or what I believed. And I started to consider, well, maybe the President of the United States may not be the most powerful person in the world. And I thought, maybe maybe pouring my energy into a candidate or a party or into, let's say, into the current system at all was probably not a good idea, because it became obvious to me that really the issue is the system is broken. The system was broken then, it's broken now. It's been broken for a long time, and I think that's a place where most of us agree. And I realized that my focus needed to be more on my own spiritual awakening, needed to be more on learning to live permanently in the open heart. And I saw that was how I could make the biggest difference in the world. And it was specifically, let me be really clear with you, and I'm going to highlight this. If you're zoning out, let me bring you back right now, because really what came to me in that moment was, it was the realization that the greatest gift that any of us can give the world is our own awakened consciousness. And that was just a huge takeaway for me, realizing that it's going to be the power of our consciousness that creates the shifts in the world that we all want to see, and that we have to live them inside first. We have to change the inside first before we're going to see them manifest outside. Excuse me. And I knew that principle intellectually, as I know most of us do. It's not necessarily new, but I got it at a visceral level that time. And so ever since then, ever since that moment, I've been questioning more and more and more and researching more. And I've had to ask the question, why is there this march towards some kind of global totalitarianism, no matter what we do and no matter which party or which leader is in power? That, to me, is the $64,000, now it's $64 million question. And so if that's a question that interests you, I'm not going to dwell on this really, but there's a great book. There are many books, so many books, but there was one in particular that I read about 15 years ago. It was called Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins, and I'm sure many of you read that book. John Perkins is a spiritual teacher now, but he wasn't always. And long ago, he was deeply embedded in the system. He was a self-described insider. And he described in the book his story, and I'm not going to go into it here again, but it's fascinating. And one of the points, and this is the point I want to make, one of the points he says in the book is that it's the same companies, it's the same people. It's essentially the military-industrial complex and their affiliates who benefit from war. And they make money from manufacturing weapons, which they sell to both sides. And then after the war is over, and there's been a massive amount of destruction, it's the same companies that make even more money by creating the new infrastructure, by the rebuilding. And these are international engineering companies, manufacturing companies, weapons companies. And according to John Perkins, they're all linked to U.S. intelligence agencies and to global organizations like the World Bank and the IMF and so forth. And the CEOs of these companies and their boards, these people, the small group of people, they move between their positions at the companies and into positions of power in government, and they go back and forth. And so it's a small group of people controlling the companies as well as the governments and the intelligence agencies. And so that shifted my way of thinking about this. And so the reason I bring it up today is that the principle is that whenever there is a war or a coup d'etat or whatever the thing is, it's so important not to buy in to the narrative that the media spins, but rather to look at who's benefiting from the situation. And one way to do that is to follow the money. So you can look at who's making money from the situation or who's gaining power from the situation, and usually that'll tell you what's really going on. And so I've done that. I've done that over many years, as I know many people do, and I realized that this potential scenario of the puppet master controlling both sides is one that can't be ruled out. It deserves to be considered by all of us. So let me add, I guess, to add, the way the system works right now is about polarity, to state the obvious. Okay, so we're confined to this either or choice of any argument. It's either going to be the left or the right, and it's going to be what you will or what you won't wear on your face, or what you will or won't put in your body. And so it's good to question this old system and to try to understand, why are we still stuck in it? Or why do we feel stuck in it? Or why are we apparently stuck in it? And asking who might be behind it is a good thing, because when we take our eyes off of each other and we stop blaming each other and stop having to choose a side, then we start to look at a bigger picture. And like I said, if we can't do this as spiritual seekers, if we can't even entertain this potential of a larger perspective, and if we insist on buying into one side of a narrative, we're very likely to be out in the streets killing each other in the not too distant future, because that's when we adopt that attitude of us versus them, that's how a war begins. So it's at the core of being locked into that old system of separation, the system of duality, where we're living in a polarity. And again, it's a very advanced spiritual practice to do this, but more and more people are waking up to it. More and more people are starting to question the narratives. And again, as Stephanie said, and as I reiterated, that this is a time when, above all, it's very important to question everything. And so I invite you to join me in this practice. Let's say for the next month, between now and the next call, let's all practice questioning everything, and continue practicing neither believing nor disbelieving, and just see how you do with it. Just observe, witness yourself, and see how you do with it. And let's all remember, there's one thing that we can all agree on, no matter what side you might feel affiliated with, and that's that the system is broken. It's outmoded, it's falling apart, and it's great. It's great that it's falling apart. It needs to fall apart. It's time, like we were talking about in the astrology. It's 5,000 year cycle coming to an end now. So patriarchy's ending, and we've got this new paradigm of the heart that is awakening inside us now and out in the world. So I'm going to conclude now. This has been quite a bit. So I hope you're still hanging in with me. Thank you for hanging in. But I'll conclude now. I just want to say that if you find yourself feeling like the foundation of your reality is crumbling beneath you, and like you're standing on shaky ground, I just want to say welcome to the club, because most people that I talk to are, and I include myself in that. And even though it may seem to some people like I'm in a bubble in South Africa, we're not exempt here from the dramas and the problems of the world. And I'm not going to go into the details, but I know many of you were in the course that I just offered, the New Paradigm of the Heart course, and I shared some of those stories. I had one of the most intense experiences of my life during this quarantine. So I just share that because I want you to understand we're not out of touch with reality just because we're in rural South Africa. And that's true all over the world. It doesn't matter where you are. Every country has the shadow coming up right now. And so, boy, there's so much more to say. Let me just wrap it up. I know that this can feel very upsetting and overwhelming, and You can feel afraid and anxious, and it's okay. And so just remembering that it's normal when we experience change, because change can be scary, and it's what the ego resists. The ego resists change at all costs, and it's so important for all of us right now to remember witnessing and releasing as much as we possibly can, and also to remember that as this old system is dissolving, we've got the new one birthing, and so I invite you to just let go. Let go of the need to hold on to the old ways and welcome in a new way. And remember that the old system is giving way to something very beautiful. This beautiful sense of calm and balance and peace and joy and love. These are the energies that are coming in now, if you can allow them in, if you can attune to them. And it's that field of consciousness that's there for us. We can tap into that anytime, and it's exquisitely beautiful. So it's time for us now. We need to practice choosing those qualities. And the quicker that we do this, the easier the new paradigm will birth. And it's going to be a bumpy ride, as Stephanie was talking about. There's a cycle here, at least for the next year, or I think you said 18 months. It's going to be a bumpy ride no matter how we do this. But the more time we spend practicing these higher qualities, and the more people who are doing it, the journey is going to go so much quicker and be so much easier. So I just want to underscore that part, the importance of cultivating balance and inner peace. If you can become a peaceful person during this time, it's as valuable as gold. If you can demonstrate some balance in your life and inner peace at a time like this, everybody is going to want to know what your secret is. So just let go of your need for stability, and you need to know, and you need to hold on to the old familiar ways. And specifically, and this will be the very last thing I want to share with you, specifically, we can all find ways to practice joy. Do the things you love to do, especially right now. Do the things that keep your vibration high, because keeping your vibration high is the most critical thing right now. Don't give your energy over to the fear and division and the anger and all that other shadow stuff. That's the best way to get sucked into the maelstrom of the mass mind. And, we're entering the holiday season, and this is the perfect time to practice joy. You can really take this time to go inward, practice your self-care, practice generosity, practice giving, do the things that you love to do and that support you. And just remember that the future is very positive. Things are going really well on the inner planes, no matter what you're being told, no matter what you see. It is humanity's destiny to move into this new paradigm of the heart. And so we can all tap in to that awareness of that massive wave of energy that's moving with us, and it's pulling us into a whole new reality. And it's going against anybody who's not. So when you feel those old forces trying to pull you back, remember not to buy into them. Remember just to let go and not buy into fear and anger and polarization and all that stuff. When we can hold that higher vibration and live in those fields of love and joy and peace, we're going to create a tipping point in consciousness, and it'll be like a slipstream. It'll allow many other people to slide into it when there's a critical mass of us, just enough people, not half the world, just a few. And so it's an amazing time we're in. This is so exciting. It's the change that we've all been praying for so long. It's actually happening right now. This is the time we incarnated for. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Thank you all for hanging in with me. I know it was a lot. Barbara, are you there with us?
I am here.
So we don't have a lot of time left. That was quite a bit. But
Yes.
Is there anything that you'd like to say or share before we go into the questions?
The one thing that I would like to share and say that has come up for me as you have taken us on this beautiful journey, Brad, is that I am being reminded that when I first was sitting with Leslie, she was talking about the South African apartheid. And she was talking about how heartbroken she was, even as a young child, witnessing the tremendous discrimination. And I feel like we are coming to a completion point. You know, we're looking at which side is right or wrong, which side is telling the truth and not telling the truth, looking at the puppet master. And my sense is that we are, obviously being engaged with fear as a distraction to what the real truth is. And here we are in the United States. I'm not sure. I'm sorry we didn't ask Stephanie. Maybe we can. About the United States going through its Pluto return, which means it's going to delve into the deep, dark shadow. And what is the deep, dark shadow for the United States but black and white? And we're not really talking about that. We're so busy pointing fingers at each other, trying to prove, I'm right and you're wrong, and we're missing the piece around equality and fairness and collaboration and the gift of life for each and every living being on the planet. So I just wanted to bring that into the circle. And, I love all that you are sharing about being in this heart-centered space. And let's come into this heart-centered space and let's own our truth and our part in it. So that is the piece that I'd like to add into the circle. And I know that Leslie did tremendous amounts of work on this. And so, my sense is, I shouldn't really engage or feel that. And I feel it's really important for us to come into our hearts with it and see all of the inequities. And thank everyone for showing us all of this with those who are me first, me only, versus watching someone be a black person be, or many black people be discriminated against and murdered. And you're talking about a fair election when there's all of this voter suppression that has been going on. So I too celebrate with you, because the curtain, yes, has been drawn back. And yes, we do get to see what really has been going on all this time. And I'm in celebration of women stepping forward and black people. I mean, it's been absolutely incredible.
Thank you, Barbara. Yes, it is incredible. I hear your phone ringing.
I shut it off because there was a timer going on. Sorry, I muted myself. But yes, and I feel very passionate. I feel very optimistic. I feel very hopeful because, what we have held in shadow is now coming to light. And so, I'm sure that there are many of us who are feeling that. Yes, absolutely.
That's
so
right.
I don't know how much time, Brad, and would you like me to share a question?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's start. We've still got a few minutes left, and we can go over a few minutes. If people have to hop off the call, I totally understand. We won't go too much over the call time, but you can always come back and listen to the recording later if you want to hear the last few minutes. But let's go ahead and do the questions, Barbara.
Okay. So the first question is from Lindley, and it ties right in beautifully with what you have just been sharing with us. And she says, what is the basis for saying that the shift to heart-centered consciousness is assured?
The basis, I can only speak for myself. I would say it's half of my own inner knowing. It's what I've been shown. It's what I feel in my bones. And to know that this is humanity's destiny, is to move into the new paradigm of the heart, and that we will get there. It's just a matter of how long it takes and how bumpy the road has to be to get there. And I would say the other half is it's what I know from listening to other seers and channels and teachers and psychics who I trust implicitly. I've followed, and especially Leslie. Leslie and her spiritual guides have been talking about this for 30 years. So, so I would say it's both. It's half and half. It's half my inner and half what I've heard from trusted friends and seers. That's the basis when I say that it's assured, is that that's where it comes from.
And I might add in here, Brad, the tipping point. When there are enough of us who have shifted into heart-centered consciousness, the collective will move as well.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. And thank you, Lindley, for the question. Lindley, that was a good question. Thank you.
Yes, great question. And so this question is from Carol, and she asks, can you please give a brief talk on the schizoid core, what it is, how to navigate it, how to know that it is where I/we are. The schizoid.
Oh boy. Okay. Schizoid core. Well, I have to say I'm not a psychologist, and I don't. This is not my area of expertise. I don't claim to know a lot about this. However, one of our closest friends in Corelight, who was this woman was part of the Ridwan school. Taught by Hamid Ali. Some of you may have heard of this. It's a very reputable spiritual study school, and so she told us a little bit about this. So I can really only speak to what I heard about it from her. But I guess what I would say is that she described that there's a defense. It's a defense mechanism that we use, and it's called the schizoid defense. And it's used to defend against like personal contact, let's say. So the schizoid core is that wounded inner part of us that is very deeply vulnerable and sensitive. And it's so vulnerable that we have this natural egoic defense to shield us from anyone discovering it or from our having to feel it, because it's just so intensely painful and sensitive. And so our friend, she described it to us as like a feeling of emptiness in the chest, or like a hole in the chest, or like there's some kind of shield around the chest, like the heart center, protecting us from feeling this emptiness of the schizoid core. And so the resulting behaviors might be, for example, like we might behave in a very impersonal way with people, and we might keep our distance from other people in order to avoid the possibility of exposing that very vulnerable part of us and getting hurt. So you can imagine that this is a condition that is probably more common than we know, because most of us have mechanisms, egoic mechanisms for avoiding being exposed, avoiding exposing our vulnerability, avoiding getting hurt. So, for example, we might isolate in order to not have to face our own feelings of inadequacy. We might build a wall around us to defend against maybe the sadness that we feel about our own inability to connect with other people at any kind of meaningful level. So I feel like Carol asked about how to navigate it, and I would say the most important way to navigate this would be to name it. To recognize it, name it, witness it, and then process it in whatever way you like to process. And at Core Light, we're always doing the marriage of spirit techniques. So you could start by doing a square on maybe exposing your vulnerability versus protecting your vulnerability. So again, I'm not a psychologist. I don't claim to know about all of this stuff, but I've done enough work to know that this is the basis of it. So Carol, I hope that helps, and thank you for your question.
And if I might add, Brad, a way that it might be helpful is to ask ourselves, what is the fear or fears that we would be most shame-filled, or we want to protect others from knowing? In other words, what's our worst fear that we would be devastated if others knew about us? And we do this internally with ourselves, whether it's fully on a conscious level or not. But if we're willing to ask ourselves what would be most mortifying to us if anyone else knew, I think that would be a really good way to get to that schizoid core.
Yeah,
and then to be able to journal about that, and then to go ahead and process that. And the double bind of that is that when we get to that level of inner depth, it's very challenging to do it on our own, and we really need help. And, to reach out and ask for help is really quite humbling on many levels, and to expose our greatest fear is also excruciating, as we've done such a tremendous job of covering it over. But my sense is that, and Leslie has shared with us, that when we give voice to it, I remember her saying very clearly that we think there's going to be some kind of big explosive catastrophe happening, and she said, and a lot of times it's just a little fart. We've been holding it in for so long, and we think that something horrendous and horrific is going to take place, and it's just like, you mean that's it? So I just encourage everyone, we're all there, we've all been there, and, vulnerability is definitely a challenge. So.
Well, that's a good reminder, Barbara, because how many times has that happened to each of us, where we have this great fear, and then when we actually face it, it turns out to be a little fart.
Yes. Yes. I remember it like yesterday, Brad. Okay. We have Jennifer. Sorry, Brad. Did you want to conclude here? I'm not sure.
No. Let's go. I'm a little. I'm of two minds about it, but let's go ahead. Let's do one more question, and then we'll complete for the day.
Well, and Jennifer, I apologize. Jennifer wrote something earlier, but we didn't get it till right before the call today, Jennifer. So, but she wrote on the web here. This is a follow-on question to the question she sent by email, and she said, the thing I am struggling most with right now, with regards to my original question, and I'll just briefly synopsize, Jennifer's been in a very expanded, loving state, and it reminds me, forgive me, Jennifer, for projecting onto you this, but it reminds me kind of Tigger in Eeyore, that she's the bouncing Tigger, and she just wants to share her love and light everywhere, and she has gotten resistance to that, energetic. So she is saying, in regards to her original question, she's experiencing spiritual one-upmanship from people who are putting themselves forward as leaders of facilitating awakening consciousness, people claiming to be evolved or advanced souls, playing manipulative games and operating from conclusion, judgment, assumption, rather than staying in open, transparent communication so all can be honored and celebrated. I get drained when I think I have found a beautiful safe haven to grow and evolve with like-minded people, and so I open my heart and show up with joy and enthusiasm, and then find myself being ostracized. I'm triggered, so there is clearly something for me to be present within my conscious creation, and I would love some guidance and healing energy around this repetitive experience that has been part of my experience in this world and in this life. Many thanks and many blessings for what you are offering here.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. Well, first, let's just start by saying it's wonderful that you're having these very positive experiences where you're having the light pouring through and you're vibrating at those levels of joy and love. It's just fantastic. So enjoy it. Really enjoy it. So many times we are asked to face the shadow. And if you're not being asked to face it, then just enjoy the love and the light and the joy. That's wonderful. Now, the other thing I'll add quickly is just that whenever we have a recurring experience, that's a very clear sign when Spirit, our higher self, is telling us there's something that we need to process. There's something that we need to look at within ourselves, because the outside world is simply a mirror of our own unconscious self. It's our own projections, our own unconscious projections coming back to us. So whatever the experience is that you're having of being rejected or being judged or whatever you're describing there, you want to process that as a part of you. You want to examine it as though it were a part of you trying to come home. It's just a part of you that wants to come back. It's a little shadow piece that's been split off, and it's a gift because it's showing itself to you so that you can witness it and name it and process it and let it go. And that would be a fantastic thing to do a process on. You could do a marriage of spirit process on it. Jennifer, I don't think I know you, so I'm not sure if you've read the book, but Barbara is a master processor, and so if you really want to nail that and take full advantage of what you're being shown, I would suggest you have a one-on-one session with Barbara and just do some processing around that. The marriage of spirit processing tools are a fantastic way to heal that kind of thing. Barbara, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Thank you very much for that, Brad. And Jennifer, I have your email, so I will be happy to be in touch with you, and we can have a conversation around it. I think that this is really something that we all struggle with. We all struggle with living in the ascended states of consciousness. We're very much more comfortable in the descended states, the negative side of the polarity. So, to move into the ascended state, it's going to trigger those parts of us that still have that alliance or allegiance, if you will, or that comfort or familiarity with the negative sides of the polarity. So, yes, this would be a wonderful square for not just you, Jennifer, but for many of us who still struggle with living in, being in, moving into, as Brad so beautifully described earlier today on the call, those joy-filled states of consciousness. So it's exciting to me to see that is a dynamic that's happening for you, because that tells me that we are indeed making the shift of consciousness into the heart. So congratulations, Jennifer.
Yeah, and let me add one thing for Jennifer. Also, I was going to say about discernment. As you process yourself and as you get clear, your level of discernment becomes better and better. So you'll be able to discern for yourself, where is it a place where you can let your joy and enthusiasm shine brightly, and where, with which people might you not want to do that because You might get chopped.
Mm-hmm.
You might not be in a safe place to share that with somebody. So your discernment kicks in much more powerfully when you've done the processing work. So that's another reason to do the processing work, is you get clear inside yourself, and then you just find yourself like, you can read the room and you can know, this is not a time when I'm going to be sharing my joy so exuberantly. You wait to be invited to share it, perhaps, or you share it with a different group of people or whatever. But So I hope that helps. And thank you, Barbara. Thank you for your input. That was great.
Sure. Yeah. Susan is asking, and I know we're ready to wrap up right now, but if we could have Stephanie Austin's contact information. So I'm just kind of bringing that forth now, Brad, as a gentle reminder before we conclude the call.
Yes, thank you. I completely forgot. I'm so sorry. I meant to do that right after Stephanie finished talking.
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, could you come back on the line with us, please?
Hold on. Let me unmute her. Go ahead,
and we'd like to hear, Stephanie, how people can get in touch with you, and also if you could tell us about any events coming up, or how people can sign up for your monthly newsletter.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to make a note, it's 11:11 right now, according to...
Thank you, Stephanie. I was going to say the same thing. Yes.
I love
it. Love it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brad, and everyone, for your wisdom today. My heart was just deeply touched and filled by your words of wisdom and truth and clarity and eloquence. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. I feel honored to be in the field with everyone today. My website is ecoastrology.com, ECO, and then the word astrology.com. Every 2 weeks, just before each new and full moon, I write an extensive astrological update, mostly in English. I use a little jargon, but I try to make it pretty understandable for whatever people's background are. Subscriptions help me dedicate the time. I spend at least 2 or 3 days on each one, going in depth with research and writing. So people can subscribe if they can. If someone cannot subscribe, I'm happy to send them the emails anyway. I don't. So if money is an issue, please don't let that be a barrier. They can email me. My email is Stephanie with a PH at ecoastrology.com. And I'm happy to send the latest update to anyone who would like that. Once a year, I do a yearly forecast, usually around the first of the year. It's a 2-hour recording, and I include 6 pages of handouts that are designed to help people to work with the archetypes directly and to thrive rather than struggle with them. That'll be available after January 1st this year for $25.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And I just want to say I highly, highly recommend all of Stephanie's work, and especially the eco-astrology report that she sends out. If you're not subscribed to it, do yourself a favor and get it. It's very powerful and always is helpful. So thank you again for your love and your wisdom, Stephanie.
And are you still doing... Yeah, are you still doing one-on-one sessions, Stephanie?
I do readings also, yes, and that information is
so I really want to highly recommend that to people as well. I've had several readings with Stephanie, and she is truly amazing and profound, and it would be well worth your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Blessings to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. All right, so I think let's wrap up now. We'll do a very brief, just a couple minutes of a prayer and closure for our circle today. So I invite you to close your eyes and relax and take a few long, slow, deep breaths. And just relax and let go. So we call on the Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God, the self that we all are. We call on all the guides and the teachers and the angels and all the beings who surround us in the highest love and support. And we're so deeply grateful for this day, so deeply grateful for this sacred space that we share together and the love field that we share. Thank you for the community. Thank you for the opportunity to be together. Thank you for these beautiful bodies that we get to wear for a few years on this beautiful, beautiful planet. And especially thank you for allowing us to incarnate at this extraordinary time. The pivot point, one of the greatest pivot points in history, is the movement into the heart. I'm aware that it's one of the greatest pivot points any species can make in all universes, is this movement from the third dimension, or the third, some people call it other names, but the third dimension into the heart. It's this beautiful space of love. So we're grateful that we have the opportunity to be here for this personal growth and to hold hands with each other as we walk this amazing path, this amazing time. What a gift and what an opportunity to open to love, to open to joy, joy being the highest fulfillment of the spiritual journey. So we thank you and offer our gratitude, and I want to say thank you to everybody who is participating live or in the future with us. Thank you for showing up, and I look forward to being in this field of love and joy with you now, and especially on the solstice. Let's all join our hearts together on the solstice when we have our ceremonies, and remember that we are part of a community. It's a soul group, and we are very blessed to be able to share this with each other. So we offer our blessings to the earth and our blessings to all humanity, blessings to all the animals and ecosystems on the planet. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alaho. And so I send you, Leslie and I from South Africa, we send you our love and our blessings for a joyful holiday season, holy day season. And we look forward to seeing you again in the new year. We don't know the day of the next spiritual weather report call, but we'll be posting it on our website and sending an email out sometime soon. So look out for that. And thank you once again, everybody. Thank you so much. Until next time.